So every other month we meet with all the leaders across all of the 9 congregations of Redemption.
We were at the Redemption Leaders Collective in November 2018.
And Tyler asks for God stories, and we just go around the room and share God stories. And I remember sitting in that room and just thinking, man, I need to share this story about Moses. But honestly, I didn't want to share it because, you're hearing all these stories and they're all good and happy and things are taking place, and it wasn't feeling happy at the moment.
I knew that this was a God story, but I could not wrap my head around how we would describe it as a God story in that moment.
And because I had shared with Tyler the story, he texted me in the middle of the God stories and said, hey man, I think you should share about Moses. And it was just confirmation. And so I stood up and just kind of started with just saying, look guys, I don't know how to share this story because honestly, I'm not seeing where God is at in the midst of all of this, but I need to tell you about something's happening in our church.
I think up to that point, it was almost like, okay, what do we need to get done? We need to get the flowers done. How are we going to fundraise for flowers? We need to get food. How are we going to, and like the work mode. And I think moms, we do that. Like, what do we do? How are we going to stick together and get all this together? And when Aaron stood up and started sharing the story, and it's like it became really real for me at that moment. Like this did happen. This did happen to our Moses, to our family. And it just hurt. It hurt really bad because I think that was the moment that I couldn't say it wasn't true anymore. That Moses was going to wake up and be fine.
Jose Moises Felix Jr. We called him Moi. Everybody called him Moi. To me, he was my monkey. Nobody knew his name was Jose. His birthday's 11/19/96. He was amazing. He was 21 years old. He was still a baby. Everywhere he went, he made people laugh or smile. He just had this thing about him. People would want to talk to him or even trusted him so fast. He loved landscaping, planting. He had a green thumb. It was like 2:30 in the morning, Saturday morning. I heard the door open, and usually he comes into the room and wakes me up while I'm home, but he didn't. So I just went back to sleep. And then I got up at 6, and there was a rose on my dresser, and he always gave me and my mom flowers, so it wasn't nothing new. I gave my dad his coffee, and then I went into his room holding the rose, and he was sitting in front of the TV on his bed holding the controller still, slouched over. And usually I would find him that way, so it wasn't new to me neither. I would go and cover him all the time because he would always be without his covers. And I would always check to see if his belly was moving, breathing. And he wasn't.
Where was I at when I got the phone call? Me and Gladys were leaving Costco Saturday morning, and I remember Perla calling Gladys, and I remember Gladys I can hear Perla over the phone and just screaming and then just saying that Moses died.
It was hard to believe it, and then I remember Miguel saying we have to call Aaron and Dana.
That day in her trailer, and the day that Moses died, and his body had just been taken, and you just sit and hold her, and everything in me wanted to know, what can I do to take some of your pain? You shouldn't have to carry all this pain. How do I carry it for you just for a minute, just an ounce of it?
I just remember just sitting on the floor next to Lupe's feet. I just wanted to sit on the floor next to her feet just to be with her,
We had no words for her.
No.
It was just, we had Damien with us.
Yes.
And all I could think of is, I can't imagine that being my baby. He was one of our babies.
Yeah.
And all I could do was hug her and just love them and hurt with them, and having just all of us not even having words, but just crying together, and just it was just hard to just to be in it.
I didn't know what I was gonna do. We don't have money. The mortuary, that one came out to, I think, $5,000. We went to 2 locations for the funeral, where to bury him, the gravesite. That one was $4,000 something too. And I'm looking at my mom what are we gonna do?
So I just remember Aaron getting up and even kind of trying to explain this isn't the ordinary God story, as far as you look at this amazing thing, but that has happened, but this is the brokenness that our family's going through as far as our church,
He's sharing the story, and it was sweet, and our whole table was just, we were a mess. We were such a mess.
And I looked around the room at the meeting, and all I could see was so many people who did not know Moses, who had no context for his life or his family. So many people who had no idea of who Moses was were crying across the room.
And at one point, Aaron had said, I can't figure out God in this moment, but I know he's there. And I remember that was ringing so true in my heart. I know God is in this, and I can't figure out where he is, but I know, I don't have any doubt. I just don't see him yet.
And so when I get done, Tyler said, hey, somebody wanted to know how much money they were trying to raise.
We had kind of come up with a number in our head, and the number was way too small, and we didn't know it.
And I said, well, I don't even know how much they're trying to raise, but they're not going to be able to get it. But I think it's I said something like 10,000 or something like that. I think it's $10,000 that they're trying to raise. And the craziest thing just happened. People just started raising their hand and asking for, well, how do I give money, and where do I give money? And then people started texting my phone and saying, we're giving this and we're giving that.
As that happened, more and more people came up, and we just sat there. It was more tears, but it was okay, God, I'm starting to see you. Okay, I see you, I see you, I see you.
I felt like God ordained that whole situation for it to happen. If you were in the room, you cannot sit there and say that God wasn't there.
And that day, all the money within 15 minutes was raised by people from our church across multiple congregations to pay for this funeral to happen for a family that they don't even know, in a small part of this church, in a neighborhood that could be forgotten, and from a kid that they could have cast judgment on, but they poured out. Just grace and love, and just no judgment, but just how do we help?
I just remember, us in a circle, and just weeping with each other, you know what I'm saying? Just praying out loud and just thanking God for just like what he's done and what he's doing.
It made me like see God again in an extremely powerful way, to see that God would use our church across so many congregations to love this kid.
And then by the time it was kind of wrapping up and we were getting ready to do worship, I ran out to call Lupe to tell her, it's gonna be okay, it's gonna be okay.
When we were at Walgreens, we were getting pictures of size so that we can put them on the jars. So me and my mom and Stella, my daughter, and my Aunt Mary were sitting in the car counting our change to see how many pictures we could get. And then a miracle. Got a call. It was crazy grace.
I was just shaking and I could not stop crying.
She was crying and scared me at first, and I couldn't really understand her.
Look, we're at this thing and all these leaders and amazing pastors and our church family's here, and the entire thing's paid for. Don't worry about anything. It's all paid for. Every detail's paid for. And she just kept real quiet for a long time, and she goes, shut up. No.
You're kidding.
And I go, yeah, everything's paid for. I go, I'll tell you all the details. I'll call you back later. I love you. Bye.
And just started crying, and everybody's like, what's going on? Is everything okay?
And by the time I went back in, more money had been given. People were giving us cash to give them. Like, there was so much money to care for every detail of this funeral. And I've never had to walk through doing a funeral like this with somebody. And there's so many details, and there's so much that has to be paid for and covered that there's no way we could have done. There's no way their family could have done.
I'm crying, but I'm laughing because it's like, wow. He never gives us what we can't handle.
I wish everyone could have been at that funeral. This room that we're doing this interview right now was jam-packed.
It was the most incredible funeral I've ever got to be part of. And it felt more like a celebration of Moses' 21 years up to that point. He was turning 22.
So many different cultural contexts that people wouldn't understand. To see and watch the way they did the funeral and the way they celebrated Moses' life and the tears that were there.
It was, I mean, I don't want to say like, I guess, you know, I'll be real, like it was like the coolest funeral that I've ever been a part of.
And I'm saying they would have never been able to have that level of a funeral and a celebration if it wasn't for the support of all the congregations.
You can tell like God was just like in it, you know what I'm saying? Like you can tell like even when we're all in here mourning, like this place was packed. But even like God used like his funeral for a bunch of people that probably wouldn't, you know, normally be in church.
With the help from everyone, redemption. I like to say that he had a big party.
It could have been easily somebody else in the streets doing drugs, but he was actually like helping provide for his family and serving his sister and caring for his family. And he took a pill that anybody else could have taken from depression or just any situation.
I had no clue what fentanyl was until Moses died. I had zero clue what it was.
So after they took him away, that's when the investigators came up to me and asked me if I knew that he was doing anything. I let them know that he did take Percocet for his back pain. And they said, well, he must have thought that that's what they were. And it turned out that they were fentanyl. It's crazy because a lot of the rehab locations don't even have pamphlets of fentanyl. It's just like heroin or cocaine or weed and like nothing, no kind of information.
And I think that's kind of the impression I get from all the people I talk to. I mention the drug and nobody has any clue what this is. Since Moses' death, we've had almost 10 other occasions of people we know that have overdosed and passed away because of this drug.
To be able to raise awareness, we made posters, got all the information mostly from the computer and whatever pamphlets that the rehabs were able to give us. Perla, she's awesome. She calls the people in charge of, say, the car shows or fundraising events and whatnot. We set our booth out and we put his posters, his pictures out there and phone numbers and just places that you can reach out to if you need help.
As a church, as a community, I think we're gonna have to become more and more aware of how we can help those who are getting a hold of this drug, because it's not a game. It's not just something that you come back from. A lot of people are dying, and they're dying fast because of this drug. And because it's not known and there's not a lot of awareness, that also adds to the problem.
Even though I'm hurting, I'm angry because I don't want kids to suffer or parents to suffer. By raising awareness and going and getting out there and letting people know what this is doing, my baby's death isn't in vain. And the Lord shows his love and his compassion for people, and our plan is doing the schools next. And I want to do apartments, especially the apartments where I believe he got it from. I want to go there, but my mom don't let me yet. But we're gonna do it. We have to.
I kind of pray that Moses' story would be told and be an evidence that God is still working. That's kind of my prayer, that his story would go beyond his short life, and it would be something that would impact other kids who maybe are struggling with anxiety or fear or pain or trying to live their best life and are doing it outside of, trying to find it in other places or whatever. I just hope that they'll hear his story and their lives will be impacted. His death was not in vain, and that's something God is going to take and use for his glory, which that's all we could ask for in all of our lives, that God would be glorified.
When people showed up to say their goodbyes, wow, I did not know how much of an impact he made on so many people, young and old and gangsters and nerds, and wow. If you would have met him, you would have liked him. He would have showed you so much love and respect that you wouldn't think that would come from a kid. And I know God had his hand on him since the day he was born, and now he has him with him. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.